What's this black cloud thing?
Because he was on. He for like 3-4 weeks in a row. It seemed like every time we played, it would just out of the blue start raining.
The weather is like no call for bad weather.
You know, and Nikki
it'd be windy. It would be.
Yeah, Nikki was determined that it was because of him. He was just bad weather followed him everywhere. Yep. And then he was talking about something in one of the pies, like, that's it. We're gonna call you Black Cloud because you like what's that character from Peanuts? Walks around and the black cloud just kind of follows him around.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
What are y'all talking about?
Yeah, the dirty guy.
Yeah,
the dirty kid.
Yeah, you don't know nothing about that.
Something.
As Miles said, something real old. Caleb, 35, going on 70.
Hey guys, welcome back to episode 10 of Loggerhead Golf. Going to get right into teaching. We talked a little bit about last week the pros and cons versus YouTube versus seeing a PGA professional. We kind of alluded to it a little bit at the end of last week's episode. We want to kind of get into the positives and negatives of indoor versus outdoor, and are there any negatives?
Yeah, what would you guys say the first question is? Probably,
Well, I would say the first question you have to really think or ask yourself is what purpose does outdoor instruction serve? What purpose does indoor instruction serve?
Do you think they're different?
I do. I think they serve different roles.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, even though we try to get the most technologically advanced hitting mats that give you the same feel as turf interaction as outdoors, there's just really no replacement for that.
No replacement for dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also too, indoors, you're usually limited by the length of ball flight that you can see. So we can monitor ball flight path and kind of see that the curvature of the ball is left to right, right to left, but we can't see the finish of the ball flight. So that's maybe a negative.
Yeah, I would say you can't. What you're hitting on there is you can't replace. At the end of the day, you can't replace seeing the actual ball flight of the golf ball.
Correct.
The launch monitors have gotten a lot better with giving us a representation of what ball flight looks like, but that's not the same as seeing the actual ball flight of the golf ball. It has it's different feedback when you see the golf ball fly.
I mean, when you make a full swing and you hear the ball you're in your follow through and the ball's back at your feet.
Right. There's a little bit different feel.
Yeah, there's going to be a different feel. Mentally, you're going to be thrown off a little bit. We hear it all the time when someone comes in. I tell them, it's okay if you're uncomfortable. We'll get through it. Right. And then you're going to realize, this is fine. I mean, we use GC Quad as well as Full Swing, which you see a GC Quad on every single player's, coach and on the ground with them during practice round on PGA Tour, LPGA Tour. I mean, it's extremely accurate. So it does a good job simulating the ball flight. Mm-hmm. But, that being said, there's something about being outdoors, being able to see that ball come off the club and know exactly if, it started on your intended target, ended on your intended target. So
yeah, and I always say started in the window you expected to see it start in, like that the trajectory you wanted to see the ball in.
Yeah, because we all come from, even though we're all mostly indoor now, we still teach outdoors, but we all come from being on a range, Every lesson we gave was outside. It wasn't until probably 4 years ago that we had teaching studios that moved you inside. You might be hitting out of a garage out to the range. Now we're completely indoors. So what would you say you guys' transitions been like?
Before do.
Well, I think that's the reason why I built this.
Yeah.
I think that's a great topic of conversation. Loggerhead Golf was formed because of my passion for teaching. And that I felt, how can I service people the most and create the most technologically advanced facility to get people better faster? And I truly believe that an indoor studio, where in all the technology you have with Sand Putt Lab, with Swing Catalyst, we're having force plate technology, we can really dial in a matter of what maybe you can't have outdoors. You can't have a force plate. I guess you could.
There's others out there.
There's others out there, but you don't see it a whole lot.
How many ranges have a flat range?
Almost none.
None.
Yeah, so I mean,
It's a representation of flat, but it's not perfect.
Exactly.
which that being said, how many flat lies do you get on the golf course?
Yeah, almost none. But I think that's. I get where you're coming at.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can monitor every shot that they're hitting. We can give immediate feedback to every shot that they're hitting. And I just think that we can get them where we're trying to go faster than what we could outdoors.
Yeah.
And also, we're not, bound by the weather.
Yeah.
We're 365 days a year.
No matter if it's hot, cold, rainy, snowy.
Humid. North Carolina down here at the coast, I mean, heaven forbid the summers are 105, 110 index. And
Give it. I love it.
90% humidity.
I love it.
I say, for golf,
If
I
it's
don't
under
mind.
if it's under 50 degrees, I'm not
Well,
playing golf.
well, like I
that's
said,
true.
You're a black cloud, but I mean, for golf, if it's, I like it to be hot because I want that ball to fly. But
You need it.
I say, like you say, teaching indoors, we're kind of in a vacuum. We can eliminate a lot of those external variables outside of the golfer's control that may distract them or inhibit the way they perform. So we get a really good true representation of their golf swing. I would say for me, part of the reason why my transition from teaching outdoors to indoors, and I kind of alluded to it last week, my teaching philosophy is all predicated around the golf ball and ball flight. However, so I can see ball flight much better on a driving range outdoors than what I can indoors. I have to rely on another system to give me a representation of what ball flight was. However, I do like having the technology there, seeing exactly what the face and path relationship was of
Absolutely.
each golf shot and kind of learning a little bit more in depth of exactly what that student's doing at impact. Ultimately, at the end of the day, on the driving range, what I got frustrated with is trying to use technology to teach on a range. And using flight scope on a range, we'd hit 4 or 5 shots. I got to move the flight scope, let it reset, and just kind of keep scooting down the range to follow the student because of divots.
Yep.
Each launch monitor has a window or a range of where it can see the golf ball. And when you're hitting off of grass, grass gets moved with golf shots. So we had to constantly kind of move the flight scope to continue to have fresh grass to hit from. So I felt like I, a lot of times, was spending more time setting up the launch monitor than what I was really giving my student attention. I don't have to worry about that indoors. Our GC, for one, GC quad is really easy to set up, but our GC quad's set.
Yeah.
We don't got to move it. It's
Only
where
time we move
it's
is
where
for a
it's going.
left-hander.
Yeah, exactly, right. So it's set. We don't have to worry about that. We're not going to. If we take a divot out of that mat, we need to work on some swing technique stuff. Yeah.
You're a little steep.
You're just a little steep. So, it kind of eliminates some of those things that we have to worry about and lets us just get more into helping that student out.
Yeah.
Focus on our golf swing.
Biggest thing for me is the way my teaching philosophy is I'm a process guy. So I'm a firm believer, if you don't set yourself up for success, you're probably going to fail. So I think of that about the golf swing. A lot of people think, a great golf shot comes from the actual swing itself. No, it comes from the preparation into the shot. So when I look out at the range and when I was teaching outdoors, I mean, we could be working on something in the golf swing related, and then I'll look down and, my student's getting ready to hit the ball and the ball's sitting in like a sideways lie, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, it doesn't matter even if you do the drill that we're working on perfect, this ball's not going to come out correctly. And then not only that, the player's going to react like he did it wrong.
Right.
When in reality, you weren't even set up correct. And I also think that the easiest thing or the hardest thing is moving the TrackMan, right? Now, TrackMan says it has its box. That box is gone in like 3 swings.
I was going to say,
and then you got to move
it
it.
never fails.
But it was always, move the TrackMan. And then not only that, it's like always making sure we're set up perfectly on a target.
Well, and even, sorry to interrupt, but even with a driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The teeing up in the same spot every time will wear that piece of grass out and you got to move the launch. It's like it didn't matter what we're working on. We got to move that monitor around. So
now, obviously, we're
frustrating.
saying more outdoor. We've been using technology for a long time.
Right.
I would never want to teach without it now. I still have old school ways, old school drills of going about the golf swing, but I always use that information as reinforcement of what we're working on. But it was always outdoors like, hey, every time I turn around, they're not aimed correctly. Mm-hmm. They're not do anything. So now that we're coming indoors, I think it's a perfect blank slate. We can see what your stock golf swing is indoors.
Yeah.
You're going to set up in the same spot every single time. You're going to be lined up relatively not too far off.
It's definitely
We have squares all
yeah.
over our bay, and people still find a way to.
True, but I would actually say when we have a student come in and if you're in a square box and you line up offset from that square box, obviously we know you have a tendency to line up either left or right.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I would probably say outdoors, you're probably going to do that even more.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
If you're 10 yards right indoors, you're probably 40 yards right outdoors. We know you've got the way you see how you line up is a problem.
And that's the biggest thing. That's what I love about teaching indoors is I control. Me as the teacher control the majority of the variables. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for the student to just show me their golf swing.
You know, one of the things I enjoy too is the fact that it's a little bit more of a, I won't say intimate setting, but it's I can control. It's like where I can have the client and I don't have to worry about Mr. Jones coming down and saying, "Hey, pro, you know, like I'm in the middle of the lesson. Can we talk about this later?"
Or everybody that walks down the range, "Hey, pro, what y'all working on today?"
Yeah, exactly. You know, for us, we have a little bit more privacy in our bays, and we don't really get bothered whenever we're teaching. They know that we're in session, and you know, we kind of get to do our thing. So I think it's a little bit better for a client experience as well. One of the other things I love about teaching that you guys probably don't think about, you young bucks, is that after 16 or 18 years of sun exposure, teaching all the time, skin cancer. We don't have to worry about that indoors. Unfortunately, I did. You know, my wife's like I said, she's a physician.
Have you seen how red my?
I'll say, you know, he never buttons his shirt.
I know
so,
this guy right here.
So you know, something has to be going there.
Yeah.
You know, being in California, being in Florida, teaching, and in the summer times in California and Palm Desert is just absolutely brutal. But it was only a matter of time not wearing sunscreen and being exposed to the sun, and I finally got a spot on my ear and had to get it cut. So I mean, it's, you know, for you pros out there, wear sunscreen and wear a big hat.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's me. I think that's a benefit as well. So
yeah, I was going to touch on one other thing you were kind of alluding to earlier. How many times when you taught outdoors, and it sounds like we're kind of ripping up outdoors right now, but
we're explaining why
the
we've
differences.
transitioned and why we see the benefits, right?
Right.
Now, that being said, there's nothing better than turf interaction. I'm a turf interaction guy.
So how many times when you were teaching outdoors have you seen a student rake a ball over and you look at their lie and they're going to hit it out of a divot?
Oh, gracious.
Right. It's like,
it's like, why? Why are you on this range practicing, and much less even taking a lesson from me, if you're going to hit it out of that divot, right?
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you didn't hit that ball good. Look at the lie you tried to hit it out of. So we don't have to worry about that here indoors. Now, like you mentioned, turf interaction. There's no replacement for feeling the golf club move through turf, particularly when you're working on wedges.
Now, I will say, too, that's probably, for a lot of people, the biggest turnoff of getting lessons indoors is mats have this bad stigmatism. Now, when mats first started getting introduced 10, 12 years ago, mats were always fluffy, nasty. What you see at most ranges that are outdoors that go to mats for the wintertime, it's very popular around here. The mats are terrible.
Yeah, it's concrete, basically.
Yeah, it's concrete, and it's super grabby. There's a lot of companies out there, and I'm not giving anybody any free plugs or anything, but they have like made great mats. Like ours in our teaching bay is a super tight, like it's going to simulate a tight lie. So if you were going to fat that shot, you're going to feel it. There's no faking it.
It feels very similar to turf interaction outdoors. The only difference is you just don't see the divot. You don't have that satisfaction of what the divot looked like.
For sure. And then it's probably a little firmer than what, you know, a lot of the conditions around, you know, the southeast region are.
Yeah, and I tell you, to all our listeners out there that are thinking about building an indoor simulator, you know, in their garage or something, please, if you got questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I've already done the research. I've gone through multiple companies and different turfs, and I'm not going to give any plugs, but there's definitely my picks on what I think is the best. That you know, we get thousands of shots a week on these things, and they hold up very well. And you know, they are a little bit more pricey, but they're phenomenal.
But they hold up pretty well.
They hold up, yeah.
Yeah, it comes down to what are you looking for to improve your game, right? If you really want to dive into your golf game and learn what you're doing throughout your swing to cause a certain ball flight, I probably Now, if there's a range that has an indoor facility that has an open door that you're hitting out of,
Yeah.
that falls in our line of indoor. So,
Yeah.
like, go to an indoor facility, get all the details, get your baseline, right? Then you go find it in the dirt. I tell people that all the time. You can't replace dirt. You got to, now you joked about it, you're like, you see people hitting out of divots all the time.
Yeah.
Now, if their ball striking is a little skinny a lot, that's a good drill I like to do is put it in, but
it
not
could
in a divot.
It could be a
but
drill, right? But I just don't want to see. I don't want to see my student who I'm trying to get. Let's face it, they can't hit the center of the club face. I'm trying to work on center contact, and then they're raking balls over
got a
trying to hit out of a
hanging
divot.
line.
And I'm not talking about just hitting out of a divot. Like they're hitting out of you could plant a small tree in that divot,
Yeah.
and there's no chance.
Well,
that ball's
especially
coming
this time of year too, right? Around here, a lot of the range is overseed. Well, that rye is starting to die out. It's starting to turn to Bermuda. It's the worst conditions you could ever
basically
hit
a fairway
golf.
bunker right now.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, the root system hasn't grown in yet.
Yeah.
For the Bermuda, it's kind of soft and sandy and
Yeah. So and
Patchy.
that's the biggest thing. If you're going to work on your swing, you need to make sure that all the variables you can control, you don't have to worry about.
Now, I do think that obviously outdoors, and I would even say, just practice outdoors more than anything.
Yeah.
Still has its place. Obviously, I mean, probably the most common place you're going to be able to find to be able to practice or take instruction is from a pro at an outdoor facility. There's just more of them there are.
For sure.
Facilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you still have those benefits of, generally speaking, you're on a range that's got a flat lie. You have the opportunity to pick your lie every time, so there's no excuse there. You should have a good lie. And then you have that benefit of seeing that ball flight, how that ball flew through the air after that strike. So I think they do still hold places and purposes, but there are the depth of what we can get into at an indoor facility with the variables we can eliminate plus the technology we're using is a lot more detailed.
Can someone do both? Can they take lessons both
Absolutely.
outdoor and indoor?
And
What do you
I'll
guys
probably
think?
recommend it, yeah.
yeah, I highly recommend doing that.
Yeah. Why would you say so?
I think there's certain technologies that you can have indoors that you can't have outdoors.
Yeah.
And so the information that you're gathering, you're going to try to apply that in an outdoor setting.
Right.
And you just cannot produce that same technology outdoors. One, because it's sun exposure technology, maybe cameras or lasers or infrared. It just doesn't. Using things to track the ball won't work because of direct sunlight.
Yeah.
And all these computers and everything, you can't put them out in the rain or anything like that. So it's hard to reproduce that in an outdoor setting. But then you take that information and you apply it to an outdoor situation.
I mean, the one that sticks to mind is like I had a lot of students that would ask me when I was mostly teaching outdoors. They'd be like, "Hey, what do you think about golf tech? Should I go over there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because they're going to provide something that I can't."
Yeah.
So I support it, right? But I also say too, it's it depends on what you're looking for. I've always told my students, I'm never afraid to have second eyes, on your golf swing.
Well, and we've kind of mentioned before, it's as far as golf instruction and your journey through golf, we've kind of mentioned like it's getting a team of people around you to support you and help you in your golf game, right? And I would never say you decide to go and take a golf lesson with a professional. You have that first lesson with them. You enjoyed it. It was awesome. It goes great. Now that does not mean that you have to work with that professional for the rest of your golfing career, for all of your instruction needs, right? And if you go to another professional, you're not going to hurt their feelings. Like they understand.
Yeah.
You go
Just
get
be
a
open
second
and
opinion
honest.
at a doctor,
Yeah,
right?
just be honest.
You say, hey, I just want to hear someone else say it, and
because I tell people all the time, if you're, it's a little off topic here, but if you're having a lesson with somebody else and you guys are working on something and you feel like that's working for you, I want to know that because I don't want to touch that.
right, yeah,
Right. You never want to I can see it quite often, especially in more fitting settings for us, is someone tell me they're working on something. Whether I agree with it or not doesn't really matter. I just, they might say, hey, can you look at this? And I'll be like, well, what are you and your coach working on?
Yeah.
That's what we're working on. I'm mostly going to say, that's perfect. Keep at it.
Yeah.
It's not, I might not think it's perfect, but it's more of a confidence factor. And I trust your coach too. So, if you're taking lessons from a PGA instructor, they know what they're doing.
They're making you do something for a reason,
For sure.
right?
I think even now, for me as an instructor, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I never want to stop learning.
Yeah.
So anytime I can get with a PGA professional that has a strong emphasis on teaching, that does it well, that's recognized as doing it well, I want to try to soak up what they're doing or what they're teaching, just so I can learn. Maybe it's something I don't know. Maybe it's a different way of teaching it than I do now. You know, I think Krista Dunton? She is phenomenal, and she was speaker at our last Carolina's PGA meeting. I thought she's brilliant. I'm going to try to go down and see her and follow her a little bit. But you know, there's others around here. I mean, even you guys, we bounce ideas off each other. So it's I highly recommend, if you're seeing an instructor, it's great. If you want to stick with them, you're getting results, it's great. But don't be afraid to get a different opinion, and it's okay to get in a different opinion. Sometimes it's not about what we say, but how we say it that clicks with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of sends that message, get you better faster.
So we're probably kind of veering a little bit, but I'll touch on it. I will say Krista Dunton is someone that I wouldn't mind taking a lesson from. Listen to her speak. She definitely has her philosophy, and she's very good at delivering that message.
Yes.
Which is interesting. I definitely liked how she delivered her message and her philosophy.
Yeah.
That being said, you know, every golf professional and working between different golf professionals, we're all probably teaching you the same fundamentals, right? But how we deliver it might be a little bit different. Everyone kind of delivers their message slightly differently, and one may work for you and one may not. And that's okay. That's why you should probably bounce around a little bit and get different instruction. But like I said, kind of veering off topic.
Let's get back. We'll get back on topic here. I think a good thing is to our listeners. Why don't you guys explain what an indoor lesson at Loggerhead looks like? You know, let's just, you know, you don't have to go obviously in details of a lesson, but
Right.
you know, what should someone expect that hasn't taken a lesson with us?
If you've never taken a lesson indoors, what's that look like?
You know, you're going to be in a room that's, you know, 20 foot by 15 foot.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to feel like it's going to feel like a big box.
Yeah, you're not going to be on a driving range.
Yeah, you're not
it's
going to
be a little bit
range,
claustrophobic.
but you're going to have,
first.
you know, big, huge hitting turf to hit off of, a mat. And you're going to have cameras and launch monitors all around you.
Yeah.
Recording everything that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, with our teaching bay, we have 4 cameras.
Yeah.
So
And it doesn't look like walking onto a movie set or anything.
No,
like
no,
if you weren't looking for the cameras, you wouldn't notice them. Right?
Oh, I mean, yeah,
you
we
wouldn't
have-
notice the
We have,
kinda
we
hidden.
have chairs. We have a coffee table in our
Right.
teaching
Yeah,
bay.
it's
kind of a
Like,
little lounge in there, right?
You know,
We want it to be a comfortable environment. So
definitely a relaxed environment in there.
you know, it might sound scary, but it's not. It's pretty comfortable. We
Nick's
got our
mom
golf
did a really
bags.
nice job at bougieing it up. So
Yeah, so it's got a nice feng shui, so to speak, or whatever you call it.
dang, man, that's a big word.
That's a big word
wow.
for me.
I'm proud of you.
way to go, Shelby.
Yeah. Look at that. I'm smart.
I would say the coolest thing is what a kind of lesson, if you come in with us, looks like. You come in, you put your bag down. We're gonna just have small talk.
I say first thing we want to do is we want to
asking-
get to know you.
Client history.
We're gonna be asking about the exactly getting your client, getting your history, knowing what you want to work on, and then the funniest question I always ask is have you ever seen your swing on video?
Yeah, I always ask that too
it's-
before I show.
And I always got to remind myself, kind of bring myself back to earth, because I think like
Everybody's seen it.
It's almost like 9 times out of 10, no. So I think I actually think that's super cool, because then it's like, okay, we're immediately giving you something you've
never done before.
You've never done
never
before.
seen.
And then what also too, it's, you know, with us, we're going to come in, we're going to let you warm up. We're just going to let the camera go. Right. Swing cap's going to record each swing. We might be clicking through things, looking at things, but we're just going to let you warm up, super casual. And then from there, we might pull up a video and then just play it. Let you see your own swing. Everyone critiques themselves.
Yeah, and I honestly,
Everyone wakes up and does it every day.
that's something I do in pretty much every lesson. Is I'll ask the golfer, is there
What do you
anything?
see?
What do you see?
What do you see?
Right, because I might see something, and then that's important to me. But everybody's critical of themselves, and I want to see what that person is most worried about. Because at the end of the day, that's what I need to focus on. You know what I mean?
I said that like 2 weeks ago, and they were like, "Pro, I don't like what I see, but that's why I came to you."
Well, that's perfect.
The best
That's
thing
perfect.
ever is, man, that does not look right, does it? And then they look at me and I'm like, well, I guess not. I don't have to validate what
but
you're.
We're not making fun of you at all. Everybody swings unique, and we've seen some interesting ones.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know,
but like we say, the golfer is there for a reason, right? So we want them to have some input on that. I always say I like to kind of work back and forth. I may be giving you instruction, but I don't want it to just be me lecturing you about golf.
Sure.
I want it to have a conversation with you about your golf swing, your golf game, and let you kind of work through.
For
that
me, I
problem
want the
too.
client to be engaged as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we being indoors, we can make that environment comfortable enough
Yeah.
for them to do that.
Yeah, a lot easier.
Yeah. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you felt. Because I can't feel what they feel.
No.
I'm trying to give them either we're working with training aids, or I'm trying to give them a verbal command that essentially simulates a feel. But again, that feel versus real thing, like this is what it feels like to me, but it might not feel like that to them.
Sometimes it doesn't matter though.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want them to make a swing with an intent. So you give them that feel to work towards, just so that they have the intent you wanted to during that swing.
And that's also what I like about being here. It's I can help somebody find that feel versus real.
Right.
Like we can show you.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, what did you feel? That I felt like I did it. Well, let's take a look.
See what that looked like.
Let's see what that looks like.
What was the result of that feel?
For sure.
I think it's like being hooked up to an EKG. We can really monitor precisely what your swing's doing, and not just from a launch monitor perspective, but when you can read ground forces, we can tell where the balance at setup is in your feet. We can tell exactly how much force you apply into the ground, out of the ground, vertically, horizontally. That's great information for us. And then it's just a matter of how do we explain that to the student.
So swing catalyst is definitely another layer for sure. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we'll dive in. We'll dive more into what our technology is,
Right.
and how you can benefit from it. But I think more or less on the conversation, indoor versus outdoor, I think they're both great for you, and you can utilize both.
Correct. I say at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you're working on your golf game.
That's
You know,
it.
it doesn't, and like I say, I've kind of joked, sometimes doesn't really matter what you're working on, just as long as you're working on something.
And
Thinking
I'll say,
about your golf game.
it's completely okay too. I've had quite a few lessons. It's not often, but someone walks in and just say, "Hey, I want you to just keep eyes on me while I'm hitting some shots and working on the things that I'm working on." I said,
We call it supervised practice.
yeah, supervised practice.
yeah.
I mean, that's completely okay too. It's all about how important is getting better at this game to you.
For sure.
We provide something for everyone.
I mean, that's a good point. So I think the other benefits of the indoor versus outdoor, when we're teaching someone, having the ability to come back into our facility and they do a practice session, now they're monitoring every shot. Where you go to a public driving range, you don't have that capability most of the time, where you can tell what your path is, where you can tell what your club face is.
Well, and I mean that
Your
too,
launch
Strike location,
Strike
everything.
location.
with the video software we have, we can archive golf swings. So like we can archive what you look like when you walked in for your first lesson, and then lessons down the road, we can kind of benchmark where you've made big steps and big progresses at in the golf swing.
Well, even better than that, I mean, there's an app that they can film their swing, submit it to us, and we can put it on our software.
Right. Yeah,
Right. So
that as
even
well,
though you're
too.
hitting balls outdoors, now setting up the camera correctly, that's a different conversation.
So whether that video is useful or not.
But you can submit it. So and that's just the coolest thing is we want to be as detailed as possible
Right.
to help you grow this game.
Yep.
Simple as that.
I was gonna say at the end of the day, the golf instruction. If you're taking golf instruction, ultimately that's a small percentage of the amount of time you spend in golf. So that golf professional's job is to get you some stuff to work on, so that you can spend your time in practice and on the golf course, working through that process.
Play
and
golf.
and
Best
working
practice is
on your
playing
game.
golf.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't forget that as well. Like just because you're taking a lesson, that's not your practice for that week, or that month. Now you went to class, you got some homework to do, and now the rest of that week or that month is doing your homework. So don't forget that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that was that's pretty good there. Thank you for everybody for listening today. Make sure that you like, subscribe to our YouTube, and comment on our YouTube channel. And we'll see you next week.